According to our friends at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, they estimate that approximately a quarter, between 24 and 25% of the American population deals with chronic pain today. Meanwhile, it is also estimated that between 8 and 9% deal with high profile or high level of chronic pain on a daily basis, according to the CDC, which limits their daily activity and daily life capacity to be active and to live a healthier lifestyle. The CDC says that this prevalence did increase post-pandemic and has affected approximately 60 million Americans at large, with higher rates being experienced by women, older adults, and American Indian and Alaskan Native peoples. Also, according to the Institute of Healthcare Policy and Innovation at the University of Michigan, 62% of Americans believe it's appropriate to hold negative views when it comes to aging and the rate of physical decline, rather than holding a positive view of continued activity. For my friend Eileen Kopsaftis, she spent more than 3 decades working in various clinical settings, including acute hospital care, outpatient rehab, home care, and nursing facilities, helping thousands of people break free from chronic pain and reclaim their pain-free and independent lives. Her approach focuses on functional movement and nutrition education to challenge the idea and the notion of aging means inevitable physical decline. As a certified expert in functional science, her approach goes beyond traditional therapy. And Kopsaftis joined me this week to tell me more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Absolutely. So, Eileen, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program. And I'm super excited to learn all about your career in healthcare, my friend. It's great to see you, and happy Friday to you.
Yes, thank you. Same to you.
Absolutely. So I know for over 3 decades, you've worked in a variety of clinical settings, including acute hospital care, outpatient rehab, and home care, my friend, as well as nursing facilities, helping people and thousands of people reclaim a pain-free, independent life, my friend. And I know that your approach focuses on functional movement and nutrition education to let people know that aging doesn't have to be such an onerous process, my friend. So tell me about your work and what makes you so fabulous, my friend.
Yes, well, I don't know that I'd call myself fabulous. I kind of joke a lot, Kevin, and I tell people I'm really not all that brilliant. I'm just really gifted at finding brilliant people, learning what they know, and then sharing it with people who are never going to meet that brilliant person. So, because a lot of the people I study under only teach licensed professionals, they only teach healthcare professionals, and the general public needs to know this stuff. It's not mainstream knowledge, but it really needs to be. So I I think the biggest thing is so many people believe that as they get older, they're supposed to decline. They're not supposed to keep their independence. A lot of people think that if they live long enough, they're going to end up in a nursing home. And that's not true. I've seen people in their 80s and 90s who are living life large. They're shopping, they're cooking, they're driving, they're doing their own finances. They're living life large. And I've met a lot of people over 100 years old having a quality life. So, and those people, I don't think that they're outliers. I don't think they're anomalies. I don't think they're abnormal. I think what they're showing is what is normal for a human life, and what we're seeing, the opposite of, isn't normal, it's just common.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you're on a relentless pursuit of showing people how to effectively address pain and chronic health issues, my friend. So tell me, how do you do that effectively, and what do you think people need to know, my friend?
So I use a multi-prong approach. People need to know what are the right foods to put into their body and what are the foods that they might want to limit or eliminate depending on what's going on in their world. I tell people you don't want to try to be perfect because that just stresses you out and gets a lot of chemical release that you don't want if you're all stressed all the time. But you do need to understand what are the most important things to do and not do. And there are some very good ideas when it comes to food because I've studied under people who are helping people to get their health back, reverse disease, eliminate the need for meds, and improve their lives. And they've been doing it for 30, 40 years. So I know it works. I've been doing this for over 30 years now. I added the nutrition component about 15 years ago when I got my diploma in nutrition education. But I'm seeing people really reverse things in their life and doing really well. And I also have worked with people 100 years old and get their strength back and be able to do squats. It's age isn't the limiting factor. You have to be seen as what your ability is, what your goals are, and work with people who don't say, oh, well, you're 80, what do you expect at your age? That's not accurate, and that's not going to serve you. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Eileen, if I asked you to describe the quality of the American healthcare system in one word today, what one word would you use, and how would you suggest that we improve it, my friend?
That was a really good question. And the first word that came to mind was ineffective. Because healthcare isn't really promoting health. It's about treating disease once it's happened. And what they call early detection is not prevention. That didn't keep it from happening. They just found it maybe a little bit earlier than they would have found it years ago until they created that test. So to me, true healthcare is promoting health. It's emphasizing the things that the body thrives on in order to keep your ability to move, your ability to be independent as long as you live. And I'm not sure how we can change it except for people like you who have these podcasts, who are inviting guests to share things that people don't know. But when they do know it, it makes a difference in their life. And I think until people start realizing, and I think people are starting to see this, Kevin, where they're not really happy with the mainstream healthcare and they are seeking other answers. The problem is there's a lot of noise out there and people can easily get confused. So I tell them the most important thing to ask is if somebody's giving you advice or recommending something or a book you're reading, how long have they been doing what they're doing and how many people have they helped? Because there are people out there who have best-selling books who aren't even working with patients or clients. A lot of what they wrote about is kind of theoretical. It's kind of their opinion, but they haven't practiced it on people, so they really don't know what it'll do to people in 10 or 20 years. And so, the people I've studied under for 30, 40 years, they've proven themselves. Their track record is stellar. So I think people just need to know the right questions to ask and to know that there is a difference they can make, but they have to get that information.
And have the motivation to do the appropriate research before they do
Yes.
something, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And Eileen, I'm also curious to ask you about, the nutritional habits of people and how we can help people really understand that they need to be motivated about their nutritional habits because it affects their overall quality of life. So how do you think we can motivate the average person to be curious and motivated to create great nutritional habits? What are your thoughts there?
Well, what I've seen is when people do make changes, and I know that requires motivation initially, but once they make a change and they start to feel better, when I teach this stuff, I've had people a week later tell me they don't have any more joint pain. When you start to feel better and pain is off the table, you're not really willing to go back to that. You're kind of glad it's gone. So once they see some success, they're very motivated to continue. But to get people to take that first step, I think what's really important is that they understand the truth, because again, there's a lot of mixed information out there. There's a lot of very conflicting information. So they don't know, okay, this person says this, that person says that, who's telling the truth? And again, ask how long have they been doing it and how many people have they helped? And if the answer is correct, then you might want to listen to what they have to say. But just get started. I mean, a lot of the times, just taking one simple step, like add a salad to your daily meal if you don't eat salad, or add a piece of fruit at the end of the night. When you get the munchies, have fruit. That tends to satisfy a lot of sweet cravings. So there are little things you can do. Start drinking water if you don't drink water. At least have a few glasses of water a day. If you think 64 ounces is way too much, just start with something. You've got to start somewhere. And success really is a matter of being consistent. So once you get started, if you're consistent with those tiny steps, you'll start to be motivated to do more because you're going to see some success from that.
Crawl before you can walk, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Absolutely. And I know that you're a certified expert in functional science, and you've condensed your 3 decades of knowledge into 2 books, which are really empowered to help people, with practical solutions and strategies for resolving their pain and maintaining strength and mobility at any age, my friend. So tell me about the 2 books and what you want people to know from them, my friend.
So again, I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I wrote my first book back in 2020 because so many people don't understand the connection in their body when it comes to experiencing pain, especially with movement. And a lot of people are on medications that the side effect is pain, and they're chasing their tail trying to eliminate the pain. But until they change that medication with their doctor's orders, I'm not telling anybody to stop taking anything, but you really need to understand, okay, what's causing the pain? And a lot of the times we're chasing the symptom, but we're missing the cause. And so that's why my book is titled Pain Culprits, because a lot of the times where we're experiencing the pain, it's a victim. It's not the culprit. And I'll say a couple of quick things. So if somebody has knee pain, a lot of the times the reason that knee pain is there is because their ankle below or their hip above is not performing properly. A lot of times when people have low back pain, it's not the back. Almost always it's the trunk above that has lost movement or the hips below. And so the low back is kind of the victim. The shoulder depends on a stable support. I helped a football quarterback eliminate shoulder pain because his ankle was unstable. Every time he released the ball, his shoulder was getting jarred because his ankle was unstable and not controlling his movement. We never touched his shoulder, but we eliminated the pain by restoring ankle function. So my book, Pain Culprits, talks about those connections. It talks about a lot of the reasons that pain occurs, and it helps people to know they're a whole body, not a body part. And they need to seek out people that see them as a whole body, or that person's going to be limited in how they can help them. And then the book, Aging Culprits, half the people who come to me want to get out of pain. The other half don't want to end up at a nursing home. So the book, Aging Culprits, is all about those things that we blame on aging, but it's not true. When you look at the research, when you look at the clinical studies, it really doesn't have anything to do with being older. It has everything to do with what you've done or not done prior to that point. In other words, that lean muscle loss that's considered to be age-related has nothing to do with age and everything to do with how active or inactive somebody was. Because every study I looked at, if they lost muscle mass, they were sedentary. They weren't moving. They weren't exercising. If they didn't lose muscle mass, they were active for the last 10 years. They hadn't stopped exercising. So it's got nothing to do with age. And so that's why I wrote the book, Aging Culprits, because people have to know this stuff. Kevin, if you think you're supposed to decline, you're going to live your life based on that belief. So it's going to alter the actions you take. It's going to alter the things you do in life. But if you know you're not supposed to decline and you can stay independent, that's going to completely change what you do. So people have to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned previously, your background also includes experience as a nutrition educator. So I'm curious to ask you about the link between, pain and, chronic pain and our diets, my friend. What do you think people need to know about the link between chronic pain and their diet, my friend? What are your thoughts then?
So a lot of people aren't aware that all food, no matter what, fruits, vegetables, animal foods, meats, seafood, dairy, all foods are either positive, they promote inflammation, or they're negative, they fight inflammation. Or if you want to flip that and say they're either positive for your health or they're negative for your health. There are no neutral foods. It's the same thing with drinks. I've had people try to trick me and say, well, water is neutral. And I say water is not neutral. It's positive for your health because most people are dehydrated and they're not drinking enough water. And the body needs water. Sometimes people are battling being tired, headaches. They can't grow muscle. Muscle's 78% water. If you're not drinking enough water, you're not going to be able to grow muscle. There's a lot of reasons that we need all that water. But food also, if you're promoting inflammation in your body with every meal you have, you're not going to be able to get rid of pain. And you're certainly not going to age in a healthy way. So to be completely specific so that people know, because I don't want anybody to wonder, well, what's good and what's not. According to the data, and this is based on real data, this is not based on information that's on mainstream websites that are industry funded, because if they're being supported by industry, they're limited in what they can actually say to people because their funding will be pulled if they speak against something from somebody who's funding them. Yep. So my diploma is from an institute that is not industry funded. It's a private institute where they provide the education for money. They are not supported by industry. And so what the data shows is if you consume less than 2 to 3, well, if you don't do more than 2 to 3 meals a week that have animal foods. Now, you don't need animal foods for health. I'm not telling people that you have to eat them, and I'm not telling people they have to be 100% vegan, because people get all turned off with that V word. They don't want to hear it anymore, and they won't listen to anything else you have to say. But what I'm saying is the data shows that if you keep your meals that include animal foods, and I'm talking any kind of animal food. It doesn't matter if it's salmon, if it's beef, if it's chicken, if it's turkey, if it's pork, whatever it is, you want to keep it to no more than 2 to 3 times a week. But most people are consuming animal foods 3 times a day, if not more. And that is promoting inflammation in their body because there's something called arachidonic acid that increases the release of those chemicals that promote inflammation in the body. And so more than 2 or 3 times a week, it's kind of like you're putting a brick on the gas pedal promoting inflammation. And I tell people if they've got joint pain, if they have already a lot of inflammation, if they just try going without the animal foods for a few days, a lot of the times people see a big difference in how they feel. So just do a little test, and I think people will notice the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Eileen, I'm also curious to ask you about this research from a Science Direct that I found interesting and a little bit surprising. The research suggests that when it comes to body mass index, they say it's often a result of poor dietary choices, like we were just talking about when we talk about an increase, and it says that 10 to 32% of pain and its increases in the U.S. are due to poor dietary choices. So I'm wondering your thoughts on those findings and whether they surprise you at all, my friend.
So I did a lot of detailed research into obesity and pain. And it was for a special course that I was creating. And what I saw across the board was when people were carrying excess weight, they had a much higher report of chronic pain. Overall whole body chronic pain, fibromyalgia, low back pain, it was much higher report. And if they did get injured, like at their job, they had a much longer recovery time. Sometimes they couldn't return to work. Now, this isn't just because people are carrying excess weight. What has been seen is the fat cell that we used to think did nothing when we stared at it in a microscope. We now know that the fat cells are like little factories, and they promote those chemicals that create or promote inflammation in the body. So the more excess weight somebody's carrying, the more inflammation their body will experience, and that will lead to more pain. Now, the good part is, Kevin, I've worked with people for a lot of years, and I've seen people, even when they had excess weight, when they change how they feed their body, they start to feel better fairly quickly, and it doesn't have to wait until they lose weight to feel better. So, that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm also curious to get your thoughts on research from the National Institute of Health, which reported last year on a survey of food bank users in the United States. And it found that 53% of respondents experienced a chronic pain, and the linkage between economic factors and diet quality also contributed to pain prevalence, my friend. So I'm wondering your thoughts on those findings and how we can really draw a link between your diet, food affordability, and the amount of pain you're in. What are your thoughts there?
So again, if they're eating what's considered the standard, now we don't just say American diet, we say Western diet because it's kind of spread. That really does promote the inflammation. But also, it's not just the food, Kevin. I think because we've become so technical in our world, we're doing a lot less walking, a lot less movement. We're sitting more than ever. And when you stop moving, joints get stiff, muscles get weak, things don't work correctly. And when people start to hurt, if they don't know how to move to resolve the pain with movement, they don't move at all. And then things just snowball. And I've had lots of people tell me that, I'm in a lot of pain, so now I'm eating more than I ever ate before. I'm eating foods that aren't good for me. So it sort of becomes this perfect storm. And they don't know how to get out of that trap. So I really think that's a big piece of it. And also the fact that the healthcare world really doesn't know what to do with pain. They try, you've got pain management. And I always find that statement a little bit strange because who wants to manage their pain? They want to get rid of their pain. So how about pain resolution, not management? But it's the medical world really struggles with the pain issue. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that every person is different. They're unique. And the reasons they have pain may be different than their coworker or their family member or their neighbor. And yet the medical world may try to do the same thing to both people, and it won't work for both of them. Might not work for either of them. So people are very unique. They need to be seen as their own person. But there are general strategies people can apply. Improving their food is one of them. And start moving is another. And you can just do gentle movement, just take a walk. Doesn't have to be some big exercise program. People tend to try to go too quick, too fast, and end up hurting themselves. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I am someone who exercises on a daily basis because I have cerebral palsy, and if I don't move my muscles, I lose them faster than most people. And one of the models that I live my life by is that movement is medicine. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on the importance of that statement. And I know that you believe that a more active society is a more healthier society. So when you hear the expression movement is medicine, what comes to mind for you, my friend?
Yes, I love that. And I'm so glad that you move every day, Kevin. That's key because you're right. Your muscles are just going to lock up and you're not going to be able to do anything after a while. So movement, I kind of say motion is lotion, but I like the movement is medicine also because it is so true. When we move, our body does so many phenomenal things, and it can be very complex as the effect of that movement. But all kinds of things are happening. The muscles are they're lengthening and they're shortening, which is causing this fluid fill effect and this fascial release. It's waking up the nervous system. Dancing is great exercise because you're moving all your joints, and the joints have concentrated nerves in them that wake up the nervous system and just does lots of great things. So and it'll get you breathing more, just expanding that rib cage. And there's just so many ways that movement is almost like medicine. I mean, it's just going to do so many good things for the body on a medical basis. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious because the American Heart Association said last year that roughly 7 in 10 Americans at 69% say that the increased cost of healthy food is making it more difficult for them to eat healthier. And 44% of those who had been on a diet had experienced at least one symptom of disorder, including whether it was a lack of eating or a lack of energy or sleep issues or depression, my friend. So how do you think, the cost of food can affect our ability or desire to eat a healthier diet, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
Yes, food has gotten very expensive, especially recently, because of all the things that are going on globally and politically, which is very sad. years ago when I was earning my diploma in nutrition education, one of the assignments I had was to create a menu for people who were living on SNAP, which is used to be called food stamps, but people who have very limited income and they're getting assistance to purchase food. And what I had to do at that time, and I'm not sure, I haven't done any research lately, I don't know how much people are getting now, but at that time it averaged about $4 a day per person. So what I did was I literally went to the local stores, I looked at the prices, and I created a menu, including some recipes, where people could eat 5 to 6 meals a day, very healthy, with whole grains and lots of plants and some fresh produce. And we kept it to that $4 a day per person. So I think it's kind of misunderstood that healthy food is really expensive. Now, yes, if you're going for organic and it's limited and you're going to these specialty health stores, they can be quite expensive. But eating healthy is probably the least expensive way to eat, because beans and rice, potatoes, lentils, those kind of foods are very inexpensive. If you're looking at meat and dairy, you're talking a lot more money to go in the grocery cart. So it is actually less expensive to eat healthy, but you have to know how. You know, you mentioned the disorder eating and the struggling with the diets. I think getting some expert help, finding some sources that actually know will help you to eat healthy is key. But you can eat very healthy on a low budget. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And Elaine, I'm also curious to get your thoughts on findings from the International Food Information Council that says only about half of Americans, at 49%, are highly confident they actually know what foods are healthy for them, pointing to a widespread uncertainty. The council says that nearly one-third of Americans, at 29%, have felt pressure also from their family members and social media to diet or eat healthier. And they've also been affected by the negative messaging that they've seen on social media, my friend. So talk to me about dieting, peer pressure, and any thoughts you had from the council's information. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, so I kind of have this thing against the word diet. And I know there are experts who say, you know, it's got the word die in the middle of it, D-I-E. It's important to be feeding your body properly, nourishing your body. I prefer those terms. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily about food restriction, calorie restriction. I think we have to change our understanding, because yes, if you limit yourself to, you know, one of those diet frozen meals of chicken and cheese, it's like 200 calories. It's only going to fill your stomach about this much. So you're going to be starving. You're going to be hungry. You're going to want something, because there's two triggers that your body needs to tell you that you're happy about your food intake. One of them is a stretch receptor. It tells you that your stomach has been filled, and so now it's happy, you've gotten enough food. But another one is nutrient receptor, and that tells your brain that you've gotten enough nutrition, enough vitamins and minerals and things your body needs to thrive from the food you've eaten. So when you eat mainly a whole food plant-based diet with lots of healthy plants and foods, like I said, beans and rice, very inexpensive, you can fill your stomach with beans and rice at about 400 calories, 500 calories. So now, and you're happy because there's a lot of nutrition in those foods. So your brain says, oh, we have enough vitamins and minerals for a while. And also because there's a lot of fiber, you've now filled your stomach. So now that other receptor says, oh, we're full, we're happy for a while, let's move on and do something else for a while. So you don't have to feel like you want to chew off your arm because you're hungry all the time, or you can only have tiny little portions of things. The secret, if you will, is to satisfy yourself and fill yourself on the plant foods that are loaded with fiber and nutrition, but they're low in calorie just naturally. So now you're not dieting. And I've had so many people tell me that, they're full. When I teach classes at the local college, I'll literally serve them a 4-course meal. And at the end of the class, they're like, man, I'm full, but I feel good. I've got energy. I don't feel like I need to take a nap. I'm ready to go do something. And they were happy. They were satisfied. They enjoyed the food. This isn't about going out in the backyard and grazing on your grass. If you don't like salad, you don't even necessarily have to eat a salad. But you really do need to be focusing on the high fiber, the healthier foods. You're going to be a lot happier. It's going to cost less money. You're going to be full. You're going to be happy. And you don't have to eat these tiny little portions. And you also, this thing about the negative messaging about the body image. So many people do want that, the social medias, pushing everybody to have these perfect bodies. And that even changes from time to time. Now they're having tiny waists and great big backsides. I don't think we need to focus on what the media tells us is a healthy body image. To me, if the person feels well and they're happy with their food because they feel full and they're happy and they're satisfied and they're healthy, they feel good. That's what matters a lot more than a perfect body weight and a perfect shape.
Yeah, absolutely. And Eileen, my final question for you today has to do with your own individual and personal legacy, my friend. How do you want that to be defined from a personal and professional perspective, considering your 3 decades in the field of healthcare? And how do you want your own personal legacy to be defined, my friend?
So, legacy is an important thing for us to think about, especially since I'm like less than 3 years away from 70. So legacy has become more of a forefront for me lately. I don't plan on ever retiring. I love what I do. I'm going to work as long as I'm breathing. So that's not a problem. But I know I won't be, at some point in time, I will more than likely end up leaving the physical world here and end up below ground. So what I really want to know that I've done is impacted as many people as possible with the truth about their health, their movement, their ability to have a life that's filled with joy. Life isn't meant to just be endured. It's meant to be enjoyed. Mm-hmm. I believe that each and every person on this planet has a desire and a right to feel joy and love and peace in their daily life. And so I really want to be part of that solution and not just making noise. I want to help people to accomplish that. So, and my personal legacy, I hope that my own family members, my children, my grandchildren will have a healthy life, will know how to share good things with others and do what they were put on this planet to do, because we all, I believe, have a purpose. And I hope that everyone in my family discovers what their purpose is and lives that out, because there's nothing better than that.
Absolutely. And can I just tell you, for being 3 years away from 70, you look fantastic, my friend.
Well, thank you. I am chemically dependent for the hair. I would be white haired if it wasn't for that. So
absolutely. And just in the spirit of sharing, my friend, I think celebrating life is very important. It was my 37th birthday yesterday, and I always tell people it's important to celebrate life, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Happy birthday. And you're doing your purpose. You're really good at research. Your questions were stellar. You did your homework. You're very good at what you do, and you're living your purpose.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'll tell you, your commission check is in the mail, okay? I'm only kidding, but before we end our conversation, my friend, I want to know if people want to get connected with you. What's the best way they can do that?
Yes, well, probably the easiest because I do have a lot of different platforms and programs, and people get a little confused. So, a couple of ways that will make it simple and easy for them is to go to YouTube. I do have, if they just type in my name, which you've got on the screen here, they'll find me on YouTube, and there's lots of ways to contact me through that. I have one website that I've created this little 5-question quiz. It takes literally less than 2 minutes to answer, and that whatever their answers are, it will aim them toward my programs and platforms and classes and whatever will help them with what they're most concerned about. And that's at my havelifelongwellbeing.com website. I know it's a big long handle, but it's havelifelongwellbeing.com. And that's what we all want. We all want to have lifelong well-being. So
Absolutely, my friend. Well, I have to tell you, this was one of the more energetic and thought-provoking conversations that we've featured on the show. So I want to thank you for bringing your energy and passion for the field of nutrition and healthcare and for engaging in conversation with me this afternoon. It's most appreciated, my friend.
yes. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for having me.